chance. Oh yo, à sa chance. Oh yo, à sa chance. Oh yo, la vie c'est la chance. Oh yo, à sa chance. Dang dang, dang dang, oh yo, à sa chance. Oh yo, la vie c'est la chance. Oh yo, à sa chance. Oh yo, à sa chance. Oh yo, la vie c'est la chance. Oh yo, à sa chance. Oulele, 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 eh. Ou bébé, eh. Ouh yeah, eh. Tado, can you play so yeah, so good? No one can test the way you shell it down. You are the best when you move in your back, run up, then down, go down, go down. Mama, give you good jeans. I could see that in your dreams when you done and create a scene. Make you I just can't believe. Oulele, 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 eh. Ooh baby, eh. Ooh yeah, eh. Girl, shake where your mama, shake where your mama give you, shake where your mother, roll back where your mama give you, shake where your mama, shake where your mama give you, shake where your mother, roll back where your mama, shake where your mama give you, don't get where your mama give you, I'll shake where your mama give you, I break where your mama give you.
How's everyone doing? All right, one more time. How's everyone doing? I don't know about you, but this feels historic. Come on, are you excited to be here? If you're wondering if I'm Senator Murphy, I am not. I'm like if Senator Murphy like sold used cars and also did a stint in Vegas, then that would be me, all right? But they're here, both him and Congressman Maxwell Frost, amazing. They just got done 2 rounds of a live hit with MSNBC, so go home and watch that from back here, amazing. But I wanted to introduce myself before we get started at 10. I am the CEO and the president of the nonprofit that has this venue here. And the reason we wanted to tell you a little bit about it is because with the rental from the campaign of this venue, that money is going directly to supporting unhoused families that are in our supportive care that are no longer unhoused. Wow, I could get used to that right there. All right. So let me tell you where you are, okay? You are, first of all, you're in Florida. Just make sure the person next to you gets that. Sarasota, we're gonna narrow it down. You're actually at the venue at LEC on the Harvest House property, and we're so glad to have you. And so what we're gonna do is I'm gonna show you a 5-minute video of a story of a young lady who came to us a couple of years ago who was unhoused, running from an abusive relationship, and had a special needs child. And she tells her story a little bit in the beginning. We had to kind of be very careful about her identity. And then one of our team members who's running around here, KK, took her story and created a spoken word, and then kind of, with her permission, told her story in the middle. So the young lady that we're representing here in the story is in the beginning and end, and then KK kind of fills in the middle. So take a look at this. This isn't going to delay the start at all, but take a look at this so you can kind of see what Harvest House is doing, and then we'll get ready for Tom Edwards, who's going to be coming out. How many of you love Tom Edwards? And a couple of other guests, and of course, the senator and congressman. So if we can dim the lights and you can play that, that'd be great.
My son and I were sold for safety from my first husband. I was sick of going to different shelters, tired of running, waiting, fearing the worst. I cry and I cry. I decided to tell no one until I felt safe enough to share. My name is Farah, and this is my story.
Her name is Farah, and this is her story. Escaping one abuser, I was led to another. A man who would smother me with infatuation disguised as love. Within a short duration, he asked for my hand, and feeling an internal demand for protection for me and my child, I did something wild. I said, yes. That yes led to his betrayal. Betrayal of my trust. Betrayal of my heart. Betrayal of my dignity. I realized I must leave, and within months I was homeless out on the streets with my son, and I was pregnant. All I had left was my job, my child, and my courage, but even that was beginning to fade. Alone and afraid, I found the strength to ask for help, yet I was turned away, pushed aside, over and over. I tried to plead and beg and still remain brave. I tried to leave my pride on the shelf, but it's a hard thing to realize you're in a place where you cannot save yourself. It's hard when you're yelling through tears and all the world hears is the weak squeak of a mouse. Then, I found Harvest House. As I entered the program with my newborn and a 13-year-old bearing a rare disease, I just knew judgment would follow. I knew fingers would be pointed at my hollow frame, and the shame of how I was to blame for my problems would spew from their mouths. A bed to lay my head? A safe place for my children? I just knew I was unworthy of the opportunities at Harvest House. But they never spewed guilt or shame. It was the opposite. I was treated with respect. They saw me as a human being, not a useless project. For so long, I had been expecting a reaction that never came. They showed me that my dignity was something I could reclaim. They knew me by name, not just another client. They guided me to learn that I could be self-reliant. They taught me money management, helped me go back to school. Their support was the fuel I needed to get back on my feet, reminding me that there is no weapon formed against me that I cannot beat. The divorce from my abuser was finally through, my debts paid off, my financial future brand new. A bachelor's degree in my pocket, I'm reaching for more. Then an email, I nearly fell on the floor. You're approved to own a home. Me? An abandoned child? A survivor of domestic violence, a single mother, a homeowner? Without Harvest, I would still be on the street. Now I get to take a seat in a home that I can call my own. I have an education, a steady job. I'm not alone. I can proudly support my children without being in a financial jam. I could not have achieved any of these goals without the existence of the Harvest House program. A spark of hope in the darkness, igniting the dreams I forgot I created. Sometimes all it takes is for one person to believe in you for you to make it. My one person was Jordan at Harvest House. Then it became a whole village that I had the privilege of joining. Destroying my self-doubt and uplifting my voice, I was freed. Harvest gives people the resources they need so that they can succeed.
Through my struggles and pain, I allowed the trees and nurture to teach me that growth required patience. I allow the wind to teach me that I can change direction and speed as I desire. I allow the flowers I watch grow to teach me that beautiful things do not bloom all year long. I allow the clouds to teach me that when things get too heavy, it's time to release. I let the stars teach me that darkness is required to see the light. I allow the sun to teach me no matter how long I have been hidden, I will always rise again and again. Thank you, Jordan, and thank you, Harvest House. In His grace, Farah.
How amazing is that? Yeah. I'm not going to go any longer because we're going to get started in just a second. But if you're interested in seeing what we're doing in the community, you can go to harvesthousecenters.org. And we are an inclusive, affirming organization that welcomes everybody, affirms who they are. And we have 380 beds in Sarasota and Manatee County, over 90 addresses and 50 campuses. Last year, we gave away over 1 million pounds of food through our food security program, and 184 children were not homeless last year or unhoused because of Harvest House. Yeah. Now, we're going to get settled up here, but when Tom Edwards comes out to get this kicked off officially, because this was the warm-up act, all right? But when Tom Edwards comes out, I would love if you would give him a round of applause when he takes the stage. Will you do that for me?
I have the magic door. Good morning, Sarasota. Everyone give yourselves a round of applause. How about the fact that we're here at Harvest House? This is an amazing group of people. I have the parents of Dan and Aaron here sitting off the stage. And for anybody that doesn't know, I'm an adopted minor child. I'm part of this group. They have been a supporter of mine through school board. They do amazing, amazing work. And this is who Sarasota is. I want to take a few minutes. Absolutely. I want to take a few minutes and let you know that we were on the front lines of extremism for the last 4 years. I sat right next to Moms for Liberty and pushed back for 4 years. And the very first time that Sarasota voters could get rid of one of them, they did, and they gave us Liz Barker. Sarasota fixed the extremism at the hospital board. And Sarasota pushed back on the overdevelopment at the county commission. All of us are moving back to the middle. And so what I want to point out to you is that what we are doing in Sarasota is leading the country away from extremism and back to the middle. We have extremists right now in the White House, and here's what we all must do. We know that there are folks out there that voted for those extremists that are feeling the pain, and we want to have a big, wide open tent and invite them into the conversation. Invite them in. Get them to be part of the coalition, and that coalition will go out and get the candidates and the elected officials we want, just like we did here in Sarasota. And it's so very important that we're not pushing them away, but we're inviting them in and to be part of the conversation. The new Democratic Party, and in our conversation, is looking at a plan for 2029 where we take back the House first with those officials, the Senate, then the White House. We did it here first in Sarasota. Come on, give it up. Give it up. We can do it. We can do this. So I just wanted to take a few minutes to say, we have an amazing program for you. We have warriors. I'm talking warriors that, just like I sat on the front line here in Sarasota, they're on the front lines in the federal government, holding back, pushing back, and keeping us as safe as possible from the fascism, from the corruption, from all of the extremist policies that are trying to destroy our country, our beloved country, and what we love about being part of a democracy. I'm so excited that you're going to hear from Congressman Frost and Senator Murphy. But first, let me bring on a couple of people that I'd like to really talk about some of our issues. We have Amy Runkle, and Amy is from one of our local healthcare unions, and she's going to talk to us about the defense that we must hold on to in and around Medicaid, around the cuts and around expansion. So it's two different processes, and Amy is going to give us all of that great information. Go over there. Take that. You want this, or do you want the pen?
Good morning, everyone. I am so glad to be here today. To us, this is extremely important. My name is Amy Runkle, and I'm with 1199 SEIU, the best union out there. Thank you. I'm also a 40-year certified nursing assistant. I've worked in nursing homes, and this is why Medicaid is, any Medicaid cuts is extremely important to us. And that's why we're here to let you know what it is that we're fighting for. Let me take my glasses off here. First, I want to thank all the organizers for the opportunity to be here today to speak. I want to thank Senator Murphy and Congressman Frost and all the other leaders that are here today that have championed the needs of working Floridians and their families. Jumping right into this, it's critical that we come together to point out the grave dangers of the Trump administration cuts to Medicaid, SNAP nutrition, and other essential healthcare programs. These cuts are reckless, mean-spirited, and would devastate our communities whose needs, all these Medicaids, the Medicaid the most. As I said, I work with seniors, our most frail vulnerables in Florida. Excuse me. And, like I said, I worked 40 years in nursing homes, and we have seen seniors pass away because we barely have what we need now. We barely have the funds given to us for the supplies that we need to take care of our residents. And when they tell you, like, starting back with the pandemic and moving forward, it's never really gotten that much better. People do die of loneliness. And trust me, as we are working right now, we barely have enough time to even have a conversation with the residents that we're trying to take care of. Now think about if more cuts coming. That means less staff, probably less supplies. It's just going to make things much, much harder. It's not fair and it's not right. Medicaid helps fund the essential care, as I was saying, for 4 out of every 7 seniors in nursing homes across Florida. That's tens and thousands of our patients, grandparents, other elderly loved ones who depend on the care to live out their lives with just some dignity. The Medicaid and SNAP programs also serve our children, our disabled people, and our veterans. As a caregiver, I find it essentially appalling that the massive budget cuts to healthcare services would be used to fund even more Trump administration tax breaks to billionaires and big businesses. The super rich don't need to be any richer, while seniors and sick kids are suffering on a daily basis. Healthcare workers are also in fear for our jobs. We've seen studies that show 45,000 jobs in Florida would be lost with threatened cuts to Medicaid and SNAP alone. Our work is critical to the well-being of our own families as well as the patients and our communities. Taking from the workers to give to more of the ultra-wealthy is just wrong, and it will hurt our economy. But first and foremost, I am a caregiver, and I want to end this with a focus on one message to the Trump administration and others in Washington, D.C., threatening these terrible cuts. Hands off our health care.
Amazing. That's what extremists miss. They miss people. They miss healthcare caregivers. They miss how important that work is and how important the funding and the financial support is. I want to acknowledge a couple people in the room. If I miss you, it's not intentional, but I wanted to point out that we have Mayor Liz Alpert with us today. We have Ron Smith, City Councilman, Venice. We have our local party chair, David Dean. And we actually have our state party chair, Nikki Fried is here. Maybe we'll sneak her out here in a little while. I also want to just point out, we have the Bending the Arc students in the back row. They went to Selma, Alabama, courtesy of Boxer Diversity. Stand up, students. Ladies and gentlemen, that is why I'm a school board member, right there. So I told you a little bit about Harvest House and being an adopted minor brother. I want to bring on the stage one more time, Dan Miner.
It's me again, I'm sorry, all right? I don't know why they did this to me. I just have a couple of minutes and we're gonna get the senator and the congressman out here really soon. I know you're excited for that. Good morning. I am the proud son of parents who moved to Sarasota. They're actually right over here in 1984. And they started this nonprofit because they were compelled by their faith to make sure this community was better off. In 1992, with 5 young kids, little to nothing in the bank, we're going to major on the nothing because that's more true, they actually mortgaged their own home. They were working 3 and 4 jobs in order to buy the first property that we first put residents in for residential recovery. Today, as I mentioned earlier, Harvest House stands as one of the premier social services nonprofits with over 50 campuses, 380 beds, serving adults struggling with life-altering substance abuse and unhoused families. Last year alone, 184 children were not unhoused because of Harvest House, and now I'm honored to be the CEO and president of this important work. I am proud of my family and this legacy, and I am not here to promote a candidate or a party. I know that's why we're all here, but I'm not here to necessarily do that. But I'm here to challenge each of us in this room for what we can do to save our community and beyond. It is an honor to stand before you, not just as a leader, but as a witness to the quiet courage of those that society too often ignores, a witness to the resilience that blooms in concrete deserts, a witness to what happens when people believe that dignity is not earned by status, but it is inherited by birth. Let me be clear here this morning, dignity is a non-negotiable. It does not depend on your zip code. It is not revoked by a prison sentence. It is not diminished by the color of your skin, the weight of your trauma, or the number in your bank account. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Every man must decide whether he will walk in the light of creative altruism or the darkness of destructive selfishness." At Harvest House, we have chose the light. We chose to believe in the worth of every person, especially those that the world has cast aside. And let me tell you, that belief now more than ever seems to be radical. It's radical to open your door to someone who's been shut out. It's radical to say you still matter to someone the system calls disposable. It's radical to look at a broken life and see beauty, not just potential, but promise. But that's exactly what we are all of us in this room are trying to do. Because this isn't just about shelter, it's not about programs or reentry. This is about reclaiming the truth that dignity is not a reward, it is a right. Ella Baker once said, "Give light and people will find the way." So together we give light. We shine it into the places that others fear to go. We shine it on the forgotten corners of our cities and the neglected stories of our people. And in that light, we see them not as problems to be solved, but as people to be loved. Now, I know the challenges we face. I know how loud the voices of division can be. I know what it's like, believe it or not, to feel outnumbered, outspent, and underestimated. But let me remind you, so were the Freedom Riders. So were the sanitation workers in Memphis. So was John Lewis on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. And still they marched, still they sang, still they rose because they knew what we know, that the work of justice is not easy, but it is holy. And the cost of our silence is too high. So to the doubters and the cynics, I say this: we will not be discouraged, we will not be delayed, we will not be denied. We will fight for dignity in every policy, every courtroom, every city council, every conversation, every school board meeting, anything that we can be at and be a part of. We will continue to fight for the dignity of all. I am not a politician, and I'm not here to push a political agenda, but I believe it is time that we stand up for human rights. And this is our moment. This is our moment. This is our moment to lift the lowly, to comfort the broken and to remind America that its greatness lies not in how it treats the powerful. I'm going to say that again. Our greatness does not lie in how we treat the powerful, but in how we uplift the powerless. Change does not roll in on the wheels of inevitability, Dr. King told us, but comes through continuous struggle. So let us struggle together. Come on, let us fight together. Let us hope together. Let us rise together. Come on, let's do it together. God bless you guys, and God bless this great and unfinished work of reclaiming dignity for all. Thank you.
So, having been a policymaker for the last 4.5 years, I can see where people are frustrated because policy that's been written and what is actually needed sometimes goes like this. And as we've heard before, democracy can be messy, but it's just like my for-profit entrepreneurial background, it's called continuous improvement. But we cannot give it up to the extremists. That is an impossibility that we will stand up and fight against. And Pastor Minor absolutely hit the nail on the head. So I also want to bring up another minister who'll talk to us from a veterans and a faith-based perspective a little bit more about Medicaid.
Good morning, good morning. I know most people, when they hear the word minister, they think long-winded, right? But I promise you, I won't be up here for much long. Good morning, esteemed leaders, community partners, and advocates. Today, I come before you not just a person of faith, but as someone who understands service, sacrifice, and the weight of responsibility, both from the church pew and the front line. We're facing a moral crisis in our country, not just a physical one. Across our states and cities, healthcare is being stripped away from those who need it most. Fundings from critical programs are being cut. Clinics are closing. Veterans, working families, the elderly, and the poor are endangered and face unprecedented circumstances. They face an adversary that will leave them without coverage and sometimes without hope. And the question is not just what are we going to do about it, but how are we morally obligated to do? As a veteran, there are a few things that I caught on too fast in my basic training. One, if a trash can goes to flying, it's time to wake up. It doesn't matter where you're from, but the uniform on your back. Everything has an acronym, and some of them are really weird. You'll learn to fear grass. Now, that would only be for the veterans in the room. You understand. Most importantly, you never leave the person next to you behind. Whether you're under fire, under pressure, you always move as one. You survive as a team. You fight for each other. That principle didn't end when the uniform came off, and it defines how I show up, how I lead, and how I protect. So why, in a nation built on shared sacrifice, are we abandoning our neighbors in their most vulnerable moments? Healthcare is not a luxury. It is a born right of our shared humanity. And for those of us who are grounded in faith, we know this truth deeply. From the Genesis to the Gospels, the care for the sick, the broken, and the weary is not optional, it's commanded. James chapter 2, verse 17 says, faith without works is dead. It's a bold reminder that belief alone will not build a hospital. Prayer without policy won't pay for chemotherapy. Compassion must be commitment, or it's just nostalgia wrapped up in Sunday's clothing. We can't afford to be silent while the person to your left, your right, front or rear may not have access to adequate health care. While the children of working families wait months for appointments, the elderly are forced to choose between medication or meals. These aren't policy failures, they're moral failures. And I say this with urgency. The church cannot be complicit with silence. The government cannot be complicit with injustice. When budgets are balanced on the back of the vulnerable, they are morally bankrupt, no matter what the spreadsheet may say. Political courage is needed now more than ever. The moral leadership must rise beyond party lines. This is not a Democrat issue. It's not a Republican issue. It's a life issue. Veterans like myself, we never fought for just the country. We fought for those to our left and our right. And we serve all the people. So what do? We act, we legislate, we invest, we organize. We ensure that churches, clinics, nonprofits, healthcare providers are resourced to meet the needs of the community. We advocate for policies that protect healthcare access and restore funding to the systems that save lives. And we make sure veterans, the poor, the elderly, and the working class are not left behind in the crossfire of political debates and inadequacies. Let us be clear. To save the soul of our nation, we must first be willing to save our neighbor. That's what faith demands. That's what service requires. And that's what leadership must deliver. In closing, I would like to quote a scripture from Matthew chapter 25, 24. And I promise you, I don't have a first or a second closing. This is just one. The king will reply, I truly tell you, whatever you did for one of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did it for me. Thank you. And may we all have the courage not just to act, but the words with policy and action rooted in purpose. Thank you.
Let's thank Minister Rosier and Amy Runkle one more time for their insights. We're at the threshold of the big conversation. They're on their way. But I want to point out a couple of things. What we learned about Harvest House, that funding, a good portion of their funding was cut by the county commission. But the community came together and restored it. That's who Sarasota is. The same thing happened with another one of our beloved nonprofits, Embracing Our Differences. The county commission cut their funding, the community came together and restored it. I keep pointing out to you that That is who Sarasota is. We fixed the politics. We're moving in the directions and so we are leading the country on how to get back in the middle and to have good government. So give yourselves another applause. In a moment, I'm going to bring out Congressman Maxwell Frost, and I want to point out to you that he was 25 years old when he was elected into Congress, the youngest congressman. I also want to tell you that my first cohort of graduates in 2022 are now 22 years old. So look what's sitting behind us here. Pay attention. And as I pointed out, the congressman and the senator wanted to come to Sarasota because they knew the magic that was happening here, and they want to be part of it, and they want to share with you what their frontline work is like, what they've been dealing with. But I also want to give them a great big thank you because they led a bipartisan bill for smart gun legislation, the first one in many, many years. Many of you know that I speak openly about the number one killer of our young people is gun violence, and I can't understand how they want me to keep a safe school when the legislation doesn't permit that. I pray every night that I don't have to have the conversations that Senator Murphy had with those families at Sandy Hook. So without further ado, let's get out the senator. Let's get out Maxwell Frost. We found Nikki Fried. You're going to have to wait a few more minutes. Come on out, Nikki.
Thank you, Tom. Good morning, Sarasota. So I'm Nikki Fried. I am the chair of the Florida Democratic Party and want to say thank you to each and every one of you for showing up this morning, because this is what democracy looks like. And so we're really excited that both Congressman Frost and Senator Murphy have decided to come here to Sarasota County, the founding location of Moms for Liberty. So they have come here to say we are taking back this county. And so with that, thank you, Tom Edwards, for being our MC today and standing up and fighting for our children every single day. And of course, to our partners at SEIU, because we understand in this moment why we're here. You're not here to hear from me. We're here to listen to you. We're here because we are living through a moment where there are threats to our Social Security, our Medicare, our Medicaid. How many veterans do I have in the room? Thank you for your service. The attacks on our VA and our veterans is unconscionable. But we're here today to say this is what this moment calls for. This moment calls for your elected leadership to show up and answer your questions and to say, what are you doing in this moment? But it is not enough to just ask the Republicans. It is important to show up and ask our Democrats, how are we fighting back? Because the issues that are happening in America today are not Republican, Democrat, Independent. They are American issues. And we have to come together for American solutions to the problems that we're facing today. But we need each and every one of you. So in this moment, it calls for not just your elected officials to be standing up, but is asking you, What are you doing in this moment too? Because this is our democracy. And democracy only works when the people are engaged and your elected officials are held accountable and that you have an opportunity to engage with them and to make sure that they're listening to you. Because that is the only way that we are truly going to get democracy. So here's my calls to action to you. What are you doing tomorrow? What are you doing the next day? Are you going to help make sure that we are electing individuals that are going to fight for you, regardless of party affiliation? Because that is what we need from each of you. So my calls to action to you is that we have calls of action every other weekend here in the state of Florida. Join your local organizations that are on the ground every single day, fighting for the people, listening to the people, and please stay engaged in this moment. This is the only way that the pendulum is going to swing back, is if we're listening and fighting. So with that, now I get the opportunity to hand the microphone back, or you want me to do the introduction? All right. So I'm sure a lot of you have seen these town halls all across the state. This is actually our 25th town hall in Florida, okay? We've gone to the reddest parts of our state in CD1, all the way down to our bluest parts down in South Florida and everything in between. Because this, again, is not a DR red, blue moment. This is an American moment. And so today, it is such an honor and privilege to bring onto stage two of our huge Democratic fierce fighters that are in the trenches every single day, not only holding Republicans accountable in Washington, D.C., but they're putting in the work by crisscrossing our country, having town halls, answering the questions of the people. And so with that, let's give them a great Florida round of applause. Senator Chris Murphy and Representative Maxwell Frost.
Sarasota, how's everybody doing? How's everybody doing? Thank you. Well, it is such a blessing to be in Sarasota today with my good friend, Senator Chris Murphy. We are currently on a tour traveling the country. We're going to districts where the Republican congressperson refuses to meet with their people. And where they're leaving a void open, we are filling that void and speaking with the people about what's going on in this country. Before I really get into it, though, I want to say Sarasota has a special place in my heart because I lived here for maybe 8 months. It was the second or third campaign I ever worked. I was a field director for one Margaret Good here. And this is one of the communities that I learned how to organize in. So thank you, Sarasota, for having me back today. Look, we all see what's going on. We have a billionaire authoritarian takeover of our government where they want to steal from all of us. Healthcare, Medicaid, Social Security, veterans benefits, nutritional assistance. They want to cut back on all of this, the things that working people have fought and earned, all to give billionaires a tax cut, all to give corporations a tax cut. And Boo is right. And Donald Trump spent the entire campaign cycle, another boo is warranted, spent the entire campaign cycle going around this country and saying that he would stand up for working people, saying that he would lower cost. He's made costs higher, and he's not trying to unrig the system for us. He's trying to rig the system even more for the wealthy, for the billionaires, for the corporations. So it makes sense why many members of Congress, like Greg Steube, refuse to meet with people. They don't want to face the people because they know what they're doing is incredibly unpopular. incredibly unpopular. And as we've traveled this country, we've met with Democrats, we've met Republicans, we've met progressives, moderates, conservatives, and I can tell you this, everybody is very pissed off. Because we know that this isn't about Democrats versus Republicans. It's not about where you are, even on the ideological spectrum, but it's about the people versus the problem. It is about coming together as working people, saying we're not going to allow these billionaires and people who have caught the shots for so long to give us the crumbs they've always given us. That in the richest country on the face of the earth, everybody deserves health care by virtue of being alive and nothing else. That one job should be enough, and we should have not just a livable wage, but a thrivable wage in this country for everybody. And of course, we got to shout out SEIU 1199 and all of our unions and people from labor. Thank you for being here. And that in the richest country on the face of the earth, and this is important, especially given we're here at Harvest House, that no one should sleep on the streets and that housing is a human right for all people. And we can do this. We can do this. We know exactly what our government needs to do and what we need to do as a party to give people the actual transformation they're looking for. To actually transform this government to work for us, not just those at the top. But the first thing we got to do is we have to fight against this takeover of our government that's happening now. And yes, I know we might not have all the seats we want in Congress, but I got to tell you two things. Number one, I don't like to think of us as the minority party because we're not in the minority in this country. Most people agree with us. But saying minority even it makes you feel like defeatist, like we have less people. We're not the minority party. We're the opposition party. And we are going to oppose all of these billionaire tax cuts and theft of our people. But not just that. And I learned this as an organizer in many different places, here in Florida specifically, that when you don't have all the power you want, you best use all the power you got. And as I look around here today, we have a lot of power across the state of Florida, but especially here in Sarasota. And so I want to thank you all for being here. And without further ado, I want to turn over to someone that I met a long time ago when I first started getting involved in the fight to end gun violence because I didn't want to get shot in school. It was the Sandy Hook shooting that pushed me to action. And I met this guy who was a senator at the first vigil for all victims of gun violence. And little did I know that a little over a decade later, we'd introduced the bill to create the first Office of Gun Violence Prevention, which was enacted by President Biden 2 years ago. So give it up all the way from Connecticut, Senator Chris Murphy.
Hey, everybody. Hey, Sarasota. Woo! Thanks for having me. Give it up for Maxwell Frost. He is incredible. You are so lucky to have him here in Florida. You are so lucky to have him. Listen, I am so honored to be here with you today. I will tell you that I was once Maxwell Frost. I was the youngest member of the state legislature. I was the youngest member of the United States Senate when I got there. I never had the talent that Maxwell has, but I'm jealous of him, which is why I'm at least trying to make an effort at a little bit of a Maxwell Frost beard. So it's actually not that hard to be, it's not that hard to feel young in the United States Senate. I'll tell you, the only thing that Greg Stubbe and I have in common is that we both play in this charity baseball game every year, Republicans against Democrats. It's been played for like 100 years, raises a whole bunch of money for charity, and it's baseball, not softball. Every year, I'm the catcher for the Democratic team, so I got to put on all the gear. And I'm not good at baseball. I mean, I stopped playing when I was a kid, but I'm the catcher for the Democratic team because I'm the only Democratic senator that can squat down and get back up. So I know that Maxwell gets a lot of attention because of how young and vibrant and exciting he is. But in the Senate, I'm kind of young and vibrant and exciting. All right, listen, if you are a member of Congress, if you work so hard to ask for the responsibility to represent constituents, to represent Americans, to represent voters, you have one basic responsibility, which is to show up and listen. Greg Steube isn't doing that here in Sarasota because he doesn't believe that he represents you. He thinks that he just is in charge of listening and representing the billionaire class, the creepy MAGA weirdos that surround Donald Trump, and his cult leader. So what Maxwell and I are doing is traveling all around this country, red district to make sure that every single voter, every single American in this country has an ability to stand up to this thievery and this corruption. And so Greg Steube can hide, but if you're in the business of turning our entire government over to the billionaire class, if you are in charge of a transition in this country to a kleptocratic oligarchy, I have news for Greg Steube. Sarasota is going to hold you accountable for that. And there is a popular conversation that happens in Democrat, which story that we should be telling right now, because it is obviously overwhelming, the amount of thievery and corruption and mismanagement and incompetence that is happening every single day. And a lot of folks say, well, there's this one story about how regular Americans are being hurt, millions of people being thrown off of their Medicaid, the shutdown of Social Security offices, the attempt to reward only billionaires and corporations. And then there's this other story, which is the destruction of democracy and the rule of law, the attempt to try to crush dissent. But I'm here to tell you that they're the same story. They're the same story, because if you are engaged in an agenda that is so unpopular as theirs, literally stealing from ordinary Americans in order to enrich the corporate class and the billionaire class, then the only way you survive is to also destroy democracy, right? Also to destroy the rule of law, to try to crush dissent. But this crowd is not an anomaly. Everywhere we are going, we are just limited by the size of our venue, because Americans in red districts, in purple districts, and in blue districts are saying, we are not going to let them hand over our government to the billionaires, and we are not going to let them destroy our democracy. And the level of the corruption is just like mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing. Just because the corruption is playing out in public view doesn't mean it's not corruption. The meme coin is the most corrupt thing a president has done in the history of the United States. I don't know if you saw this, but an international trucking company just announced publicly, like they sent out a press release in which they announced that they were going to buy $20 million worth of Trump coin in order to get an exemption from the tariffs. That is outrageous. Just because the corruption is playing out in public doesn't thought that he could sort of tiptoe into trying to normalize and opening up his office to scalable bribery. And he is finding out right now, are onto him, and the American public is not going to let him get away with it. And so we're going to tell all over the country, I'm going to tell you, we are going to tell this story with a sense of other. And let me tell you why I think that. Because I remember I was in Congress in 2017. In 2017, same deal. Donald Trump comes into office, though thin majorities, in the House and the Senate. And they had been fighting for almost to repeal the Affordable Care Act, Obama. It was their number one agenda. Everybody said that they would be able to. It was a foregone conclusion. A lot of Democrats and progressives, people that alive because of the Affordable Care Act, why try? Did fight it. We fought it in every single district. We threw sand in the gears in Wise all around the country, and we fought that we convinced just enough Republicans to vote against the repeal of the Affordable Care Act, and we saved health care insurance for 20 million Americans. Now, what they're trying to do right now is even more evil. They are trying to end health insurance through billions of Americans in order to transfer all of that money, $1 trillion cuts to Medicaid, to Mar-a-Lago friends, a tax cut for billionaires and corporations. But they're having a hell of a time passing it right now. Because you are standing up and telling Republican members of Congress, even in Republican districts like this, that if they vote in favor of this thievery, they are not going to come back to Washington, D.C. So political organizing is not rocket science. Yes, some of the ways in which we communicate are new today, but it just comes down to some basic, simple mobilization decisions that you all have to make. Just decide that you're going to do one thing, sometimes a really small thing, every single day to put an end to this thievery and corruption. Decide that you're going to show up to an event, or maybe you're just going to post on your social media. Maybe you give Greg Stubbe another phone call. All of it adds up. And then I'll give you the last reason that I feel optimism, because Maxwell and I have worked together to end this epidemic of gun violence. It's our life's work. I don't think there's any more noble pursuit in public service than working to save children's lives. And listen, I understand a lot of Americans believe rightly that our current version of democracy is rigged, and it is rigged. And so there is a conversation happening in this country that we can't be blind to, in which a lot of Americans are saying, hey, listen, would we be better off with a different kind of system of government? But we have seen how democracy can work. For 30 years, the gun lobby owned Washington, D.C. Nothing was allowed to happen that would hurt their profits and help kids' safety. And then finally, 10 years after Sandy Hook, 10 years after Maxwell and I decided to help build the modern anti-gun violence movement, in the summer of 2022, after the shooting in Uvalde, Congress finally got together, pushed to get together by the American public, and we passed the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the first major anti-gun violence bill in 30 years. And you know what has happened since then? Gun violence rates in this country have plummeted. The biggest 2-year descent in gun violence rates and mass shooting rates in the history of the country. There are literally young men and women, there are children who are alive today. There are parents who aren't grieving a dead child because we saw in that moment democracy work. And it is just a reminder to me of why this experiment, this righteous, wild experiment, American democracy, is worth fighting for. And it's important to remember how wild this idea is. No civilization in the history of the world has done what we have done for as long as we have done it, because it's not just self-governance, which is a radical revolutionary idea in and of itself. It's self-governance in a multicultural, multiracial, multi-religious society where we are defined by our commonalities, but also our differences. No nation has done this for as long as we have done it. And so you know what? It is natural that every now and again, there is going to be a conversation in this country as to whether it's worth it. Because it's hard. It's hard to live with people who are different from you. It's hard to live with the inefficiency of democracy, the work that goes into finding consensus. But you know what? I don't just have optimism when I wake up every day. I have a sense of joy. And my sense of joy is due to the fact that of all of the times in history, all of the places around the world that I could have been dropped into as a human being, I'm here in America at a moment where I, along with you, can stand up and save the most radical, most important experiment in governance in the history of the world. America is a great nation. America is worth fighting for. Democracy is not a spectator sport. And so we are here today to be in communion with you in this fight, but to do what Greg Steube will not, to listen to you, to answer your questions, to do the basic job of governance. So let me thank Harvest House. Let me thank Nikki Fried. Let me thank our great speakers from the clergy and from labor. And we are really excited to do the basic job of governance, which is to organize around the great noble work of saving American democracy. So thank you very much, everybody. All right.
Let's give it up one more time. This is awesome. This is awesome. Thank you. Okay, we have some questions that were submitted. I'm going to go through this list first, and then we'll go do some live audience Q&A, time permitting. Ryan Hoffmeister.
Hello, my name is Ryan. Thank you, Senator Murphy and Congressman Frost for going on the road to highlight this important issue that has such serious liberty, life and death implications to our community. What are the next concrete steps legislatively you will take to protect these essential programs and we can do as caregivers and caring for Floridians in general to save Medicaid, SNAP, and more?
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. Look, we know, I always tell people as I've been traveling the country that what's going on right now, we know it's Project 2025. But what a lot of people don't realize for us Floridians is Project 2025 is actually Florida 2024, 2023, 2022, and 2021. So all the things they want to do, rating our money to their benefit, Ron DeSantis has been doing here for a long time. This is part of the reason why we're one of the only states to not have expanded Medicaid. It's part of the reason why the fund, the Sadowski Fund, set aside to help us with the housing crisis, is rated year after year by these Republican governors and administrations and don't want to do what we need to do to solve the housing crisis for tenants and homeowners alike. And it is why, especially people with disabilities in this state, the wait list is insane. And the government here has done nothing to fix it. And it's even worse now. Do you know there's less people working at the Social Security Administration now than were working there in 1994? And there are more people it needs to service. There's more work that needs to be done. I just had a roundtable with a group of people on disability through Social Security, learning about how these wait times have skyrocketed in just the last few months. It can take certain people up to 3 years to receive the benefit that they deserve and the promise that our country has made. And unfortunately, there are too many people with disabilities that are dying as they wait for it. And what they want to do is make it worse. And this is part of the reason why we have to have this multi-pronged approach to fighting back. Look, I'll tell you, going to someone else's district and doing a town hall it's kind of a, it's kind of a disrespectful thing. But you want to know what's even more disrespectful? Not meeting with your constituents. We believe that we're in this moment where we can't play politics as usual. We can't. We have to think of other ways to advocate. So whether it's these town halls, whether it's you all showing up to the town halls if they do have one. If you're seeing someone at the grocery store, walking up to them, telling them, don't cut my Medicaid, don't mess with my benefits, all this stuff, the calls you're making. I know it feels like sometimes the calls don't matter. Trust me, they matter. Those days when the phones are ringing off the hook and there's tons of emails coming in, the vibe in the office completely shifts.
100%.
Yeah, you can change the entire environment in one office. I'm telling you, I've been there for it. And it works. But to your question specifically, the work we're all doing, coupled with the inside game, the work we're doing within the building to push back, to obstruct this horrible extreme agenda, it's working. Not working fast enough, but it's working. This is why 2 weeks ago, 12 more moderate Republican members of Congress sent a letter to Speaker Mike Johnson. They said, hey, we can't vote yes on this budget with the type of Medicaid cuts you're talking about. I can tell you that if it wasn't for the work we are all doing, that letter would not have been sent, because politicians do not like putting themselves on the record unless they have to. And so the work we're doing is pushing back on this, but we got a lot more to do. And collectively, we're going to be able to push back on these horrible, massive cuts, including the Medicaid. So I appreciate you bringing it up.
Yeah. So let me say a word about a tactic that really has impact, and it's the ability for people to tell their story, right? Personal stories still matter. And the reality is the Medicaid program is so big in this country because it does two things. One, Medicaid is the health insurance program of last resort. If you have a medical complication that is so serious and so significant that you can't get insurance any other way, for instance, you cannot work, then your only way to pay for the bills to take care of your or your child's very serious condition is the Medicaid program. If Medicaid disappears, the consequences are absolutely catastrophic. There will literally be millions of people in this country who will end up in the hospital or who will die because it's that Medicaid program that is their lifeline. And so when people stand up and tell the stories of what the consequences are, it does have an impact, because whether Donald Trump wants to believe this or not, America is not a mean nation. We are not a mean nation. And so when faced with the consequences of death and destruction that comes with Medicaid disappearing for the most vulnerable, for the most dispossessed, for the most powerless in our community, it does have an impact. And to just foot stomp what Maxwell said, again, we don't have to reinvent the wheel when it comes to how advocacy works. Their margins in the House and the Senate are so thin. You only need 4 Republicans in the House and 4 Republicans in the Senate to say no to their sort of central legislative agenda, which is these giant cuts to Medicaid to finance the tax cuts for the wealthy. Already, you're seeing in the House that there is pressure from both sides. There's folks who want deeper cuts to Medicaid, and then there are folks who are saying they want no cuts to Medicaid. All we have to do is convince a small handful, less than 6 Republicans, to do the right thing, and we will save millions of lives in this country. That is absolutely possible. That is absolutely achievable if we continue to raise our voice.
Sloan, step up. Sloan Cox.
Hi, I'm Sloan Cox. I'm a junior here in Sarasota. And young people, we often hear that we're on the track to having less rights than our parents. And we also hear from the Democratic Party a lot about optimism and hope. So I'm wondering what you would say to the young people about maintaining that hope, and maybe what some next steps you're taking are.
Sure. Thanks, Sloan. Great question. Well, I will say this very simply. There is no great social change or political movement in this country that succeeded that did not have young people at the forefront. And I wish that it wasn't Parkland that had to put young people at the forefront of the gun violence movement. I wish it wasn't the fact that there were high school students running for their lives inside and outside of their classrooms that ended up with adults stepping back and young people stepping forward. But it is not a coincidence that the modern anti-gun violence movement plodded along too slowly from 2012 until 2018. And then once the young people here in Florida, the young people from Parkland took control of this movement, we started to see real change. The reason that we passed the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act is because young people stepped up and led. And so I hope that young people can take ownership of the fact that, as I said, there are literally thousands of people who are alive today that wouldn't have been alive if young people hadn't stepped up. But young people right now are on the firing line, because let's just talk for a minute about what the Trump administration wants to do to public schools, right? Nobody in this country wants the destruction of our public school system, but that's what their effort to shut down the Department of Education is really about. Because to the billionaire class, to the Wall Street class, to the private equity class, they are so angry that they can't make a profit off of our public school systems. So what they want is to undermine public education so that Donald Trump can sell off our elementary schools, our middle schools, and our high schools to Wall Street so that they can profit off of our kids. This country and the kids of this nation are not going to let them get away with that. They just aren't. And so our work is to listen to you, is to listen to the young people who are on this stage and ask how we can help you mobilize, because we have seen what happens when young people lead. There are young people who are alive today in my city of Hartford, Connecticut, because of young people's leadership on the issue of gun violence. And if we get young people to lead at this moment on the corruption, on the thievery, on the attempt to destroy our public school system, then we will see that same level of success.
I'll just briefly add to this too. You know, when I decided to run for Congress, I was 24 years old, and, you know, I was encouraged by some friends to do it, and honestly, all the things that my opponent said about me, I said about myself first. I'm too young, no one's gonna support me, I don't have the experience, this and that. And then I started talking with my friends who said, what do you mean you don't have the experience? You've been organizing. You also know an experience on what it means to go through more school shooter drills than fire drills. You also have the experience of knowing what it means to feel like you might never own a home because the cost is so high. You also know what it means to grow up as a young person in this country and have crushing student debt and crushing debt, not because we live beyond our means, but because we've been denied the means to live. And then I realized that it was important that not just my voice or Maxwell Frost as a human be at the table, but that actually my experience, because of my experience, I needed to run for Congress. And so the thing I would tell all the young people here is run for office, because we need people to run for office across this country. And I'm sure Chris and I would both say, of course, we need younger people in Congress, but definitely skews one direction. And it needs to look like the country. But we also need people to run for state and local office, because that is where the front lines of democracy is right now. And so I grew up, and people would always say, you know, young people, you're the leaders of tomorrow, you're the leaders of tomorrow. And I'm like, that's BS. We're the leaders of today. We are the leaders of today. And I wonder when I have to stop saying we. You know, when I talk about young people, I wonder, like, what's the cutoff?
You're saying you have to stop. You're saying you have to stop saying we?
I don't know. I feel like,
I don't know, man. Have you seen the Senate, man?
I go into the elementary schools, and then they introduce me as the first Gen Z member of Congress. And then even in the high schools, and a lot of people are like, "You're Gen Z? You look way older than that." And I'm like, "Damn, come on."
Congress wears you down, man.
First of all, I'd like to thank Senator Murphy and Congressman Frost for coming and talking to us in Sarasota, since our own representatives won't do so. Thank you for touching on the public education issue. I'm with Support Our Schools, a local organization which is fighting for our public schools. Trump's been clear that he wants to do away with the Federal Department of Education. And we at SOS have heard from so many parents of what used to, back in my day, be called special ed students, what we here in Sarasota call ESC, or exceptional students. And these parents are scared to death that their children will no longer receive the services guaranteed to them by law, such as individual education plans and 504 plans. Even though Trump may not have the legal power to kill the DOE without Congress, he can reach the same result by defunding and moving various responsibilities out of the Department of Education into other departments like the Department of Justice and the Department of of Health and Human Services with Bobby Kennedy, which is a truly frightening thought. We even have members of our school board, not this one here, who have publicly stated that they support doing away with the federal DOE. That would be Karen Rose, who's no longer with us, thank God. Robin Marinelli, and the Queen of Mean, Bridget Ziegler. So this is a local issue of massive importance to us here in Sarasota. And I'd like to ask you, what advice do you have for parents and other public education advocates? And you've got some great ones in this row here. They inspire us every day to go out and fight some more because they're out there doing it. So what advice do you have for us to fight back against those who would seek to defund and destroy public education?
Thank you for the question. And first off,
Thank you.
Do we have any teachers or educators in the audience? Raise your hand. Raise your hand.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. This is very personal to me because my favorite person in the world, my mother, she just retired after being a public school educator for 37 years. And if you work in education, you know that this is also makes her very special, that she worked as a special education teacher for all 37 years. All 37 years. And honestly, my family, we begged her to retire for a while because that's a hard job. And she would always say, I can't abandon my kids. I can't abandon my kids when the world has abandoned them. And I grew up, there was a period of time where my mom was teaching at the same school I went to school at. It had its blessings and its curses, for sure. But I remember after school, staying up very late in that classroom, watching my mom do her IEPs and being on the phone with these parents and really putting more time into the job that she wasn't getting paid for. I remember when our family would go out to grocery shop, and she would be putting things in the cart, and I'd say, "Oh, why are you getting that? I don't like that," or "Does anyone in the house like that?" or this and that, and she'd say, "No, it's for one of my kids at school because I know their family can't afford this and that." And she spent so much of her own money, and I know my mom's story is not a unique story. These are so many of our teachers. And what Chris said is 100% true. This is part of a greater effort that has been going on for decades to make public education fail so they can point at it and sell it off to people. But we won't let that happen. We won't let it happen. And what you brought up is so true. The Department of Education, and when this first started, I actually organized a group of members of Congress, and we pulled up to the Department of Education. And I took this video. Many of you probably saw it. It was a very viral video of us not being let in. The doors were locked, and there was armed DHS officers behind those glass doors, ready to go if we broke in or whatever they thought we were going to do. The reason we did that is because we can't assume that everybody's paying attention. And we wanted to show not just the country, but the world that we're at a moment where they're letting Elon Musk and his minions in and not letting members of Congress in. But we also wanted to highlight something very important. The Department of Education doesn't create curriculum for the entire country. It's not what they do. They fill gaps. And honestly, some of the most important work they do has to do with our kids and with our schools and with people. Rural education in rural communities, helping students with disabilities, helping to ensure Title I funding, Pell Grants, school lunches. All these things are very important. But let's be honest, it's about them selling it off to make money off of it, but it's also about the fact that one of the core ways authoritarians and the neo-fascists, one of the top ways that they gain power is by taking knowledge away from us, because knowledge is power. They don't want us to think for ourselves. They don't want our students to learn in school because they want to rule us all. This is what we're in right now. That's why it's so important to have badass school board members like this guy over here. It's funny because a lot of people don't know this, but technically my first elected position was I was on the Osceola County School Board in Orlando. And I was a student representative for 2 years. I sat on the dais, I just couldn't vote. And I got to see firsthand the amazing work our school board members do and that the community does when they come in and we work together to ensure that we have a good public education system in the county. But I gotta tell you, these school board meetings nowadays are getting a little too exciting because of Moms for Liberty. So let's kick all these people out and make school board boring again, okay?
So we got our start both in local politics. I was a member of a local planning and zoning board, and I was considering running for the Board of Education as well. And then I realized that if I wanted any future in politics, I had to get the hell out of local politics. It is very hard. And we have such deep appreciation for what you guys do to stand up for our kids and for our families, despite the fact that all of these local decisions that are supposed to be just about what's best for our kids have become part of this national political theater. Your local school board member, your parent groups here in Sarasota do an incredible job for all of you that deserve your support. So, listen, when your mom was writing these IEPs late at night, they were for families whose parents were registered Democrats. They were for families whose parents were registered Republicans. They were for families who were totally apolitical. One of the things I would say about this moment is that much of what Trump is doing is taking not just the country by surprise, but his own voters by surprise. Okay, now it might have technically been part of their platform to destroy the Department of Education, but he didn't run on that. He didn't lead his speeches. Nowhere in his, 175-minute rambling rallies did he do a riff on destroying special education. And so this is a really important moment where we have to offer out a hand of coalition and friendship to people who voted for Donald Trump, who have now seen his real agenda and are ready to make a break. Right. I think of it this way, there were a lot of Trump voters who thought he was serious when he said that he was going to tackle costs, that he was going to bring the cost of living down, and they thought he wasn't serious when he said he was going to be a dictator on day one. It turns out it's the opposite. He doesn't give a crap about costs. He's driving them up, and he is acting like a dictator trying to destroy the rule of law. And so this creates a permission structure for us to grow our coalition, to sit across from Republican parents, from parents who voted for Donald Trump, who are scratching their heads as to why he's coming after their kids, as to why he is trying to destroy public education. When you put these referendums on the ballot for universal vouchers to essentially send taxpayer dollars to private schools and to religious schools, in the reddest of states, they fail because destroying public education is unpopular everywhere in this country. So our job, and we talked a little bit about this last night, is to fight hard against Donald Trump, against his enablers, but then in our local communities to find a way to build and grow that coalition. And there's probably no better way to do that than through talking very honestly about Trump's attempt to try to destroy our public schools. Thank you so much for the work that you do on behalf of our kids.
Music to my ears. Seth Stottlemyre.
Where's Seth? Okay.
Seth has a fan club.
Great barbecue, by the way. Great barbecue, right?
Hi, my name is Seth Stottlemyre. I'm a longtime resident of Sarasota. My family's been here since the 50s, and it's very heartening to see such a great turnout today. I'm very, very encouraged by it, and thank you both for being here. Thank you. This question is for both of you. Considering the extreme polarization we have in America today and voters' declining faith in the status quo of our current two-party political system, it seems the time may have arrived for us to consider more serious efforts to reform our electoral system. Understanding this isn't easy and would need to begin at the state level, what are your thoughts on open primaries and ranked choice voting, which encourages candidates to find common ground and court the entire electorate from the beginning and not just from their far left and far right bases?
Thanks, Seth. You are right that this is a great and a heartwarming crowd, but by the way, there's hundreds of people in an overflow room, so give them a little bit of love, give them a little round of applause for... This is an overflow crowd, and we'll be out there in that overflow room to say hi to you when the questions are done here. So I referenced this earlier, and I just want to be honest with you. I want to level with you for a minute. Kamala Harris, I think, ran a very good campaign under very difficult circumstances. Thank you to her and her team for standing up that campaign on short notice. But they decided to run a campaign where the tentpole was the preservation of democracy. And that sounded like the right thing because, as we now know, Donald Trump is a rolling, boiling, daily assault on democratic norms. But what it looked like was that we were standing up to protect this version of democracy, which is not working for Americans. Everybody knows that this version of democracy is rigged. It is rigged in favor of extreme positions. It is rigged in favor of corporations and billionaires. And so our work as a Democratic Party here has to be a little bit of self-ownership and self-criticism. Democrats have to realize that if we are ever going to be credible messengers against corruption, then we have to elevate to the top of our policy list the kind of bold, radical ideas that will unrig not just our economy, but that will unrig our government as well. And so for me, on that list is changing the way that we vote. But maybe more importantly, at the top of that list for me is the Democratic Party making it clear to everybody in this nation that if you give us power again, we will do everything necessary to get billionaire, millionaire,
working class politics. That brings us all together. The stuff Chris is talking about, ending Citizens United, banning members of Congress from trading stock, all these things, they poll at the highest level in a bipartisan way. It's stuff that people who consider themselves as conservatives and Democrats, progressives, moderates, everybody can get behind. And I agree, it's really important that we rise to the occasion here in terms of the corruption agenda and fixing these potholes in our democracy. But also, we got to make sure that the right to vote is actually a right to vote and not just a privilege. So it's passing the Freedom to Vote Act, passing the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. We have to pass this legislation. Gerrymandering. We have to handle. So I love this question because this is we're speaking with people. We're speaking with people of all different types of. Tell you, when the people to the left, same thing. For generations, gotten crumbs. Generations, we have had to say, well, it costs too much to do this, this, and that to help people, but then there's no problems with massive subsidies to billionaires and corporations, and we're tired of it.
Amazing. So I just want to give you a time frame. We definitely want the senator and the congressman to spend a little time in the overflow room. Those folks have been over there very patient, and they're so one or two more questions. The senator also needs to get a plane and make sure that when you have a question, it is a question, not a story to a question, but a question.
Let's do one out here and then one in here too.
Fire away. Let's go here, right here in the front.
Hi, my name is Mary Ann Shea, and I would like to know if you think that we can improve conditions in places like Newtown, for example, here in Sarasota. They just got a bank like a year ago, or 2 years ago, and millions of new towns all over the country. And I wonder if those conditions can be improved all over Florida and all over the nation, if you can help with that.
This is conditions for, I maybe missed the conditions for who? Oh, low, this is, I didn't know a new, something a little different to me.
Low-income areas.
Okay, so let's talk about housing for a second. You want to talk about the rules being rigged? The rules have been rigged against affordable housing for decades in this country, and it's time that we unrig those rules. So you cannot afford to live if you are spending 30, 40, 50% of your income on rent or on a mortgage. And what scarcity does is drive up the cost and drive up the profit margin. And so the big housing developers, which are increasingly owned by a handful of private equity companies, are in the business of scarcity. They are in the business of the rules staying rigged so that they can keep the numbers high. If the Democratic Party wants to really have a relevant conversation with people in this country, then we should put right next to fighting corruption at the top of our agenda, ushering in a housing boom all across this nation to make sure that there's enough housing to go around. And listen, people are kind of done with these little incremental fixes, right? They believe the market is fundamentally broken. So what if we just talked about something simple in this country, like a cap on how much your rent can increase from one year to the next everywhere in this nation? What if we said that private equity companies can't own housing, right? That housing has to be owned locally. So this is a message that resonates. And right now, this issue is there for the taking. Donald Trump has no plan to increase housing, had big enough ideas in the past. So if you want to communicate with Republicans, independents, and Democrats, then the issue that housing way to do it. So thanks for the question.
The housing about, and because especially here in Florida, it's impacting who is having issues with their homeowners insurance. All the hands go up. And not only is our state government not doing anything about it, but the special session they called years ago actually made the problem worse. Why? And it all stems back to this greater story. Instead of looking at regulations in this market, in the reinsurance market, what did Ron DeSantis say was the problem? Consumers. The 0.01% of claims that end up being fraud, that's the problem is that we need Ron DeSantis to grow a backbone and go for these industries that have been dominating and making all the rules. And let's talk real quick about the really important work that departments like HUD does, which he wants to cut HUD in half, is what they want to do in this budget. And it would impact people like here at Harvest House and the great work that they do and the continuum of care across the entire country. Listen, let me tell you why it's so important to do this work. Number one, it's very personal for me. I experienced homelessness during my campaign because I got priced out of my apartment when the rent hike moratorium was lifted in the state of Florida after COVID. And I'll tell you that it is both more challenging and more expensive for our country to help people once they've fallen into homelessness. This is why things like rental assistance, why temporary supportive housing, why transitional housing, why all this is so important. And look, most people who face eviction in this country, it's not I don't have the entire rent check. Actually, most people are between $100 to $500 away from being able to afford that rent. And when we do rental assistance, we help keep people housed because I'm telling you, once they fall out of that housing, and then subsequently, once they fall to being unsheltered, it becomes harder for us to deal with it. Now, does the answer, let's not deal with it? Hell no. Because this is a country where we believe, and we should believe, that everybody deserves to have a roof over their head.
Hallelujah.
And so, Chris is right. Both parties have not really had a good housing agenda. In fact, Kamala Harris was the first presidential candidate on any side of this to have a real housing platform. We have to build off of that. I have a bill that I want to plug called the End Junk Fees for Renters Act, which says that these corporate landlords that are charging us and nickel and diming us for stuff that they legally have to do. This fee, that fee, this fee, that fee, that you don't know about until you sign the papers or after you sign the papers. Let's put more power into the hands of tenants so we can make informed decisions as we move forward.
One more question?
I want to start this off by saying thank you so much for supporting the students and the youth in this fight for everything right now. And then on top of that, I'm a student at Booker High School, and I see my friends and my family members and people who I associate with on the daily who are constantly worried about deportation, who are worried about their losing their family members, their friends, and I see curious what steps we are going to take to fight against this. Yeah.
I appreciate the question because what the president is doing is illegal. Due process is something everybody should be afforded in this country. And this is impact. I'm asked by some people. I just had a town hall because I actually do town halls in my district. I did a town hall just yesterday, and I had one gentleman who stood up and asked me, "Why'd you go to El Salvador? Why'd you go to advocate for Kilmar Abrego Garcia coming back here to the States to go through a process here?" And what I said is, it wasn't even just about him, but it's about what this represents, and it's about the fact. I've had so many of my constituents say, I am him. What happened to him, I'm scared it's gonna happen to me. And in case you've been realizing, there are so many of our immigrant families not going to church anymore, not sending their kids to school anymore, not showing up to work anymore because they're scared nationwide, but especially here in pass and sign the nation. Immigrants are my mom. I'm talking about my mom, but she's like, well, my mom came here repression. People like Ron DeSantis. But when she came here, Rubio too, all these people, when she came here, she was afforded an opportunity. She was given a temporary status so she could go through her asylum process and so she could become a citizen like she did. Exceptionalism, the right likes to talk about it all the time, but then they would attack the things that make America exceptional. And it's the fact that our Constitution is for all the people on our land. We have to fight against it. We have to fight against students having their visas revoked on college campuses because the administration disagrees with what they have to say. We have to be against all of this. So I appreciate the question, and it also shows something I love, especially about young people, is that naturally seeing the world through the eyes of our neighbors and through the eyes of the most vulnerable. Not just asking questions about what are you doing for me, but what are you doing for my neighbor? And that's another thing that makes our country exceptional. That this project is about all of us, not about just a single person, but all of us coming together. And so thank you so much for that question. We need to continue to fight for all immigrants, for all people, for all of our rights.
The one power that you cannot give to the executive is the power to arbitrarily arrest, detain, or deport people based upon who they are or what they think about the regime. Because today it may be Kilmar Abrego Garcia. It may be a student visa holder who just wrote a critical editorial of Donald Trump. But it is a very quick, slippery slope before it is all the rest of us. And so I act and Maxwell acts every day with a sense of urgency because there is a world if we don't stand up in which this country, quicker than you can imagine, transitions from a democracy to an autocracy, right? And so this is a moment where we have to be loud and urgent, but also strategic and thoughtful in terms of how we protect the rule of law. So what are we doing right now? So right now, we are working, for instance, to make sure that our colleges and universities speak with one voice to deny Donald Trump the ability to shut down protests on our campuses. We are standing up for journalists for their right to be able to speak truth to power. We are elevating lawyers in this country who want to protect our constitutional individual rights. And we are going to make clear what this agenda is, because what Donald Trump has done his entire political life and what he is trying to do now is to distract you from the thievery, right? If your rent bill is too high, it's not because of an immigrant family who is just trying to integrate itself into American life. If you're having trouble affording your health care, it's not because of a transgender student who's trying to live a dignified life in their school. If your public school isn't good enough, it's not because there was a drag show last Friday night down the street from you, right? This is an attempt to try to divide us against each other so that we are punching at our neighbors and we don't see the corruption and the thievery that is happening in the Trump administration. This is an effort in classic distraction. It doesn't mean that you don't fight for immigrant rights. It doesn't mean that you don't stand up for our gay and lesbian and transgender students. It doesn't mean that you don't engage, but it also means that you stay trained. You stay trained on the central storyline, which is their attempt to try to turn our entire government over to the billionaires and the corporations and to destroy democracy in the process. We are going to talk every single day. We are not going to let them get away with it.
Everybody, thank you. Sarasota for coming out today. Thanks, Sarasota.
Looking back on when I was a little nappy-headed boy. In my own worry was for Christmas what would be my toy. Even though we sometimes would not get a thing, we were happy with the joy the day would bring. Sneaking out the back, so hang on.